Namaste, my fellow strikers. Holy Materia here, back with another Shinobi Striker video. Today we're going to be doing a tier list for all the DLC up to Season 3, so let's get right into it. Okay, so I wanted to go ahead and get this tier list out before Season 4 starts. Now that Season 3 is over and the meta is kind of settled down, let's go ahead and rank all the DLC that have come out so far. So as you can see, there's no D tier because at this point, I wouldn't say that any of the DLC are bad. It's just that some of them aren't as good as the other ones. So if your favorite DLC gets put in C tier, don't think I'm saying like that DLC is trash or something. It's just not quite as good as the other ones in that class. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it because we got 23 DLC to talk about. Okay, so let's start with Season 1's DLC. We'll start with Jiraiya. I put Jiraiya at, I'd say he's B tier. Maybe even close to C tier, but just like I said, it's not that he's a bad DLC, it's just that he's not as good as some of the other defense types. But Nito Jizo is a really good move for like flag battle and base battle. And his toad oil bombs can be good, and his ult is okay depending on how you use it. I actually like to use it, but I wouldn't say that it's like a meta ult. Next, let's do Sarutobi. So I'd say that he's in the same boat as Jiraiya, like B, low B, maybe even C tier. His flame bomb is nice. A lot of defense types like to use it, especially in the pit. It does decent damage and it catches you on fire. His ult can be good, but it's not really the best ult to use in the team modes. And his Mud Dragon is pretty much only good on base and maybe flag, but I love that move. It's one of my favorite moves in the game. But yeah, I'd still say that Sarutobi Sensei is B tier. Okay, so let's talk about Hashirama next. I'd put him in A, like low A, high B, maybe. His Wood Dragon can be really useful. It gives you back health and it resets people's ninjutsu, so that can be good. His ult is OP, and the Laughing Buddha hands are okay. That's one of the moves that I like the idea of it, but it doesn't really always work that well, so it's not really a meta move. But so I'd still put him in A because his Wood Dragon and his ult are both really good. Tsunade I'm also going to put near the top of A. Before I had her in S tier, but because of some of the other healer DLC that's come out and some of the buffs to other healer moves, I'd say that she's more like close to the top of A now. Her ult is still good, but now that Mitotic Regeneration is much better than it used to be, her ult is mostly for the buff that you get to like your defense and then the recharging your ultimates. But since Mitotic Regeneration heals people completely now, it's not quite as good as it used to be. Nervous System Rupture is still really good in certain game modes, or really you can use it in every game mode. And her Heavenly Foot of Pain is okay depending on what kind of build you like, but it's not one of the best moves in the game for sure. So I'll put her at the near the top of A tier. Rochi Maru, he might be the only person that I'm gonna go ahead and put in C tier. You can use his moves okay in certain niche builds. His ult is alright if you use it right. If you can catch somebody off guard with it, it one-shots most classes. And the tracking is okay if you use it from far enough away. But it's pretty easy to dodge if you know it's coming. And then his ninjutsu are just okay, like because they don't really fit in all the game modes. Like the snakes are okay if you have like some kind of build where you're focusing on status ailments. And then his other move is okay on like base battle to knock people off of bases and stuff, but since the tracking's so bad, it's not really that useful in other situations unless you have your build built around it. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and keep Orochimaru in C tier, like he was in the last video. Tobirama I'd also put in B tier, maybe a little bit above Sarutobi, but not by much. His Water Dragon is really good for flag battle because it's good for defending flags since the tracking is so good since they buffed it. But his Severing Wave isn't all that great unless you're really skilled and you have like your build base built around it. And his ult can be good in like flag battle or base battle, but it's not really useful in combat unless you have like some kind of build that you can like swap people into it, or you have your team setting it up or something. I'm also gonna say that Obito, I'd also put Obito in B tier. His Flame Formation is still meta. It's still like one of the main defense moves that like clans use. But if you're not really coordinating with your team, it's not that great. Kamui can still be useful like on base battle, and if you have like some kind of builds where you're trying to one shot with the buff, but most of those one shots don't really work anymore. And his ult can be okay depending on the situation, but it's kind of hard to hit with because of the weird angle that it goes at, so it's not like a meta ult. Minato, still S tier, one of the best DLC in the game. A lot of the attack DLC is really good, and Minato is one of the best. All of his moves are useful in some capacity, like really good in some capacity. Flying Raijin level 1 is great on flag still, even with all the times they've nerfed it. It still works great taking the flag. Flying Raijin level 2 is good in pretty much every game mode. You see that everywhere. And his ultimate, Flying Raijin level 3, is still one of the best attack ults. It's super meta. You always see people running. It's basically a one shot, and it's almost a free kill because of the tracking, if you're even decent with it. So yeah, Minato is still definitely S tier. And probably my choice from the last video that got the most disagreement was Madara. I had him at A tier. Everybody said he should be S, but I still am gonna put him at the top of A tier because Majestic Destroyer Flame is without a doubt the best range jutsu in the game right now. But his other two moves are not that good. Hiding in Ash is only good in certain situations, and his ultimate is only okay if you have a build set up so that you can stun them for long enough for it to hit, because it's so slow that any player with the slightest amount of skill is going to dodge it if you don't set it up. So yeah, I'm still putting Madara in A tier because his only meta move is Majestic, and even though it's a great move, it's not enough to put the whole DLC into the S tier. So yeah, he's still A. Alright, so let's go to season 2. So let's start with Ino. I'm going to put her near the bottom of B tier. I like her moves, but almost nobody really likes Ino's moves, and you don't really see her jutsu that much. So her mind transfer jutsu is almost useless, like as far as like how often you see it. You can set it up so that it's okay, but yeah, it's not really a good move. Her ult, I like her ult. You can pitfall people with it. You can use it to stall people, like on flag. If you ever seen like Zeno Martinez, he uses it to support his team. But people don't really run it. It's not very meta, and people love to hate on her heal because you have to be stationary. But I still think it's a good heal, especially in base battle, and especially if you run it with Water Pillar. So I definitely don't think she's C. Like personally, I put her a little bit higher in B, but because of like the state of the game, like the way like how much you see her moves, I'd say that she's like low B. All right, now on to my favorite character, Haku, but it was not all that great in the game. I'd say Haku is like close to the top of B tier. Yeah, about close to the top of B tier, because of the nerf to restriction damage. So Icicle Swallow is not as overpowered as it used to be. So even if you're a skilled player, like first of all, Haku's only good in the hands of skilled players. Like newer players, I wouldn't buy the Haku DLC until you get like decent at the game. But yeah, Icicle Swallow is still good for setups, and it's still good for countering other meta moves like super armor on defense types. 1,000 Needles to Death is okay for certain things, like if you want to play like more defensively, like setting people up. In the ult, they recently buffed Haku's ult, but it still doesn't one-shot people, but it comes back pretty fast, so it's okay. Personally, I have a hard time hitting people with it, but nobody else seems to have a hard time, so it's an okay ult, but I wouldn't put Haku in A tier. Now this will be the biggest change from the last video. So before, I had Onoki in C tier with Rochi Maru. Those were the only two in C tier. But now, with the buffs to his jutsu, I'm going to put him in A tier because both of his ninjutsu are really good now, and you see them all the time in pretty much all the game modes. Or yeah, well, you can see one of them in each game mode at least. So Super Light and Boulder has the new buffs where it increases your teammates' ult charge, so it's one of the most meta healing moves now in the game for combat. The Heavy Boulder jutsu is great in flag battle, but you even see it in other game modes too. Like you see it in base battle sometimes. I even see it in combat sometimes. I wouldn't run it in combat personally, but yeah, you see it in all the game modes pretty much. His ult is still super bad. It's garbage, especially considering like it's a one shot, but the tracking is so bad. So now, especially now that Naruto Last Battle has come out and his ult is a one shot with great tracking, it makes Onuki's ult completely useless. So yeah, his ult is still terrible, but because his ninjutsu have become so good because of the buffs and debuffs that they put on the teams, yeah, I'd say he's A tier now. So that's the biggest change probably since the last video. Oh, this is also going to be a big change. Killer B, these are the two biggest changes. Killer B, I always say like that attack types have the best DLC. All the attack DLC is good, and that was true last video. But since they did since they nerfed restriction damage, Octopus Hug is not a good move anymore. So that was his main move that made Killer B so good, like because Octopus Hug was one of the most meta moves in the game before, but now it's not that good, and his other moves have not improved at all either. So Killer B, I'm also going to put him in C tier with the Rochi Maru, because he doesn't really have any moves that are meta anymore. You don't really see his moves. His ult has never been good. It's still not good. His counter, I guess it's okay, but nobody really uses it. And now that the restriction damage meta is over, so now Octopus Hug isn't that good anymore either. So yeah, sorry Killer B, that's my dog, but you're in C tier, right? Because the other attack types are just overpowered compared to him. Okay, Zabaza, I'm still putting Zabaza in A tier, because just like Madara, he has one move that's really, really good, and his other moves are not that great. So Demon Hunter is one of the most meta moves in the game. It's been meta since he came out. They buffed it since he came out, making it so that it heals you too, and it's still one of the best moves. Defense types run it all the time, especially now with Hazan Strike. They run it together with Hazan Strike. It's still one of the best moves, but his Water Prison move is not that great. You can use it in certain builds, like where you're trying to like do the tick damage, the damage over time, like stuff with Sand Shower and stuff. And his ult is not that great, especially now that Shisui is out, and his ult is basically Zabuza's ult plus other stuff. So yeah, just like Madara, Zabuza has one really, really good move, but his other moves are not very good at all. So he's at the top of A tier with Madara. Okay, let's talk about Guy Sensei next. So Guy, before I had him near the top of A, but I feel like I see his jutsu a lot more than I used to. So I'm gonna put Guy in S tier. Because dynamic entry you see that all over the place, and even the Youth for Roar, you see a lot of people running that now, and they're both good moves, and his ult is overpowered. Even though you die after you use it, it's still a good ult, and you see it all over the place. Like you see it in every single game mode, except maybe Flag, but all the other game modes you see his ult in. Even combat, where you would think that people wouldn't run that because you get killed, but people still run it in combat too. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and put Guy Sensei in S tier this time. And then Naruto, Adult Naruto, or Naruto Boruto, I'm gonna put him near the top of S tier, maybe at the top, because he's still one of the best DLC in the game. Every one of his moves is good. Both of his ninjutsu are meta, especially in base battle, where they both break Water Pillar and Sand Shield, and they can break guards. And his ult, I'd still say, is the best attack ult in the game, and one of just the best ults in general in the game. Yeah, it's a two-part ult. You get your health back, you heal your teammates, you give your teammates their ninjutsu back, and he comes with the Rasengan ninja tool. So yeah, Adult Naruto is just one of the best DLC in the game. And then I'd say that Sasuke is right up there with him, Adult Sasuke, or Sasuke Boruto. He comes with 3 ninjutsu, and now they're all really good since they buffed Onyx Chidori. So like now Onyx Chidori has become meta. He has the Heavenly Hand power, which is good in like flag battle and certain situations depending on how you build it or what builds you use. And Flame Lightning is one of the best moves in the game, one of the best range moves in the whole game. Probably the second best range move besides Majestic Destroyer Flame. And his ult has been good, and it's still good. And it's pretty easy to use too. As long as you do it from the right distance, it'll usually one-shot the squishy classes. So yeah, I'd say him and Naruto are right at the top, but you could say either one is the best one overall. And then Mei, the last one here in season 2, I'm still gonna put Mei in S tier because not even just on the strength of Water Pillar, but first of all, Water Pillar is one of the best moves in the game. Changed the whole way that healers can approach the game, how we can play, what we can do. And even though there's a lot of counters to Water Pillar, it's still useful, and it's still one of the best moves on base battle, one of the best moves on flag battle to capture flags. And then Lava Style is not that great, but it's good. You can work with it on base battle and even on flag. But her ult is still pretty good for clearing areas. So it's a really good ult for base battle and even on flag battle. So yeah, two of Mei's moves are really good. One is okay on certain game modes. So yeah, I'm still gonna say Mei is S tier just because she changed what healers could do. There hasn't been anybody else in the game who's changed healers as much as Mei. And that's including Naruto last battle. Like, even though he's OP, he didn't change like what healers do. He just made healers do things better than they did before. Alright, so now let's take a look at Season 3. Okay, so let's start with Double Sharingan Kakashi, the first DLC that came out in Season 3. When he first came out, I would have had him about here, like one of the best DLC in the whole game. But since they nerfed him so bad, I'm gonna say that at this point he's like low A. He's not bad, but he's like low A. Kamui is still okay. You don't see it nearly as much as you did before, but it still serves its purposes. Kamui Lightning Blade, it's an okay move. The defense buff is alright, or the defense debuff that it puts on the opponent is alright, and his ult is just okay. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna put him at the bottom of A, maybe even like high B. But yeah, Double Sharingan Kakashi had probably the worst nerf in the whole game of all the DLC, maybe besides Killer B, because he was one of the best when he first came out. But now he's not that good, or he's not nearly as good as he was. All right, so and then Neji is the opposite. So when Neji first came out, I would have had him near the bottom of B tier, maybe even in C tier. But now, because of the buffs to Hazan Strike, Neji is one of the best DLC in the game. So he's S tier easy because Hazan Strike is so crazy, and his ult is okay. The body blow is still not really that great, but his ult is decent, and Hazan Strike is just one of the most broken / best moves in the game. You see it all the time in every single game mode. It breaks Water Pillar and Sand Shield. You can't block it. It takes away your whole sub. And it takes away some of your ult charge. It's just one of the best moves in the game, and it's almost impossible to block, or it's almost impossible to dodge. The tracking is crazy. You need a nerf. It needs a nerf. It needs a nerf bad. But yeah, so Neji is definitely S tier. Shisui also S tier. I'm gonna put him, yeah, I'll put him a little bit above Minato because Oboro Garuma is one of the most overused jutsu in the whole game. Almost every attack type uses it in every game mode. They use it all the time. It breaks Water Pillar and Sand Shield. It gives you all a million buffs, and the cooldown is only 9 seconds. So yeah, and then his other jutsu is okay. His other ninjutsu is alright. It's not like anything game changing, but it's still a nice move. And his ult is overpowered, especially in flag battle. It's almost impossible to stop when you use that in something like flag, because it's like 3 ultimates in one. So it makes it hard to see. It reverses your controls, like getting hit with nervous system rupture, and it can give your teammates infinite subs with the Sharingan. So yeah, that move is super crazy. So next, let's talk about Six Pass Naruto, or Naruto Last Battle. So he's the best healer DLC for sure. So let's see, we'll put him. The tier, the list is sort of like where they would be like within the tiers, but really just think about it like the S tiers are S tier. They're not necessarily in order. But yeah, Naruto Last Battle is the best healer DLC. His ultimate is overpowered. It's one-shots everybody. It has great tracking. It's huge, and it doesn't even take that long to charge if you pair it with something like Onoki's Super Lightning Boulder. So yeah, that ult is OP. His ninjutsu, True Secret Orbs, is really good. it changed the way healers can. It changed the way people think about healers. Like whenever people see a healer pop True Secret orbs, they're always wary of that healer for the rest of the match. So it protects healers more than they've ever been protected really before in the game, especially since people's teammates rarely protect the healer. So yeah, it's a great way to keep people off you. When you hit people with the orbs, it resets their ninjutsu and their ninja tool, so it's devastating when you hit the healer with it. The rebirth, the resuscitation rebirth move is not that great. Some people like it, but it's not really meta. You barely ever see it. It's probably best on base, but it's not really useful in combat. The range on it is just too small, so yeah, you don't really see that often. But yeah, he's an overpowered DLC, but I wouldn't put him above any of the other people that are in S tier right now. So now Boruto Karma. So he's still new, so he hasn't really been like nerfed or buffed. So this one, I'd say that he's like A tier, somewhere around somewhere near the bottom of A tier right now. His ult is different. It's something that we haven't really seen before, but I don't think people have really realized its full potential, and they don't really know how to use it yet. It basically anybody who's inside it will take away their ult and their ninjutsu, and it gives you like a huge defense buff and an attack buff once you stop it. And but yeah, it's not really, I wouldn't say it's not meta, but you don't see it that often, and you don't really see people using it well so far. His thunderclap move is really good, especially in base and flag. When any game mode where people are staying still, and you can use it, and you can pretty much use it in every game mode if you have the right setup. So yeah, that move is good. Boruto stream is not that great. It seemed like it was going to be better than it was, but it's not terrible, but it's not like it's not meta. You don't really see it that often. But yeah, Boruto is somebody that we're still kind of getting used to, so we don't really know exactly how good or how bad he's going to be, because he came out recently and he hasn't had any nerfs or buffs yet. So yeah, that's the tier list. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. So yeah, Sakura is coming out for season 4. So we'll see how she affects the meta and where she ends up on the tier list. Hopefully we have another S tier healer, because really Mei is just my favorite, so I'm probably biased. So really the only real S tier healer is Naruto Last Battle. So hopefully Sakura will also be S tier. But yeah, that's it. That's gonna do it for me today. I'll see you guys in the next one. Everybody stay safe out there. Peace and love.